right, I'd like to call this special call meeting of Glenn County Board of Commissioners for Wednesday, November 1st, 2023. Apologize for being a few minutes late coming on for a 4 o'clock meeting. We had a splost update. That meeting concluded right at 4. We just had to make a few transitions. We have been called to order. I've asked Commissioner Toskerson to lead us in our invocation, and let's go. Commissioner Wilkowski to lead us in the pledge today. If you can stand with us, please.
Everybody bow their head, please. Thank you, Father God, for allowing us to be here and be a part of the leadership of this governing body. Thank you for loving us and blessing us, and thank you for the wonderful place that we live, and we want to try to make it better, and we always want to keep your eyes and your hand upon us on every decision that we make. Bless our law enforcement and our fire department and all the essential workers that we have, and keep your hedge of protection around them. All in your Son, Jesus' precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's go. All right, we only have one item on our agenda for this call meeting, and it's for discussion and consideration of the future pay plan changes for the public safety departments and approval of a proposed Glenn County Police Department pay plan to address staffing shortages. And we have our police chief, Chief Edner, with us, and we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, Mr. Fallon, Mr. Mumford, Ms. Munson, thank you all for being here. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe this was a critical issue that is affecting the Glenn County Police Department and Glenn County. So I appreciate your time. I know everyone's busy, but to call a special meeting for this means a lot to me. It also means a lot to our command and our officers. I do have 2 of my commanders here, and we do have representatives from the rest of public safety, because we know this is an issue that's not only affecting Glenn County, it's affecting Georgia, and it's a national issue. So I did put together a presentation with the assistance of my staff, and I have had discussions with each of you regarding this issue, and I think you understand my passion behind it, but also the reason behind what we're trying to accomplish here. The main thing is that we want to attract highly qualified individuals to come work in Glenn County in public safety, and to retain them throughout their career and not lose them. Traditionally, you will lose people to other professions, especially law enforcement officers will go to federal agencies like FLETC, the Marshals, ATF, DEA, but usually that percentage is maybe 10, 15, maybe at a high 20%, and that's looking at the length of their career. Where we're at now, we're at a critical level. So I'll start my presentation, and please interrupt me at any time if any of you have any questions or anything that we've discussed and you feel I need to bring up to light, because I want to make sure we cover as much as we can. So first off, that was our promotional ceremony we just had last week. Those are the 8 supervisors that were promoted, 6 to sergeant, 2 to lieutenant. And I think it's a great representation of the department and how we're rewarding our officers that do the job, step up, and really hold themselves and others accountable. So if you look at our uniform patrol division, it's made up of several units. Of course, patrol, our traffic, heat, bike patrol. We also have our investigations division, which we call CID, criminal investigations, special investigations, crime scene and evidence. So what I'm getting at is we're allocated to have 133 officers for the department. That's what our FTE funded officer number is. And we're a full service agency, meaning we provide all these, what you see right in front of you, which is important to understand. So support services is obviously our equipment, quartermaster, but everything else that comes along with that, with tasers and the upfitting of our officers. Our airport officers are there, and of course the specialty of K9. We have 6 K9 officers for our department. In the administration division, most importantly, we have training, records, crime analysis, and recruiting. All of them are extremely important. In the Office of Professional Standards, we have internal affairs, but most recently, as you all know, we have state certification that we're working through, and CALIA accreditation. So they fall under there as well. And then some ancillary units which we have, which we were out on the other night, which is our SWAT team. CNT is our crisis negotiation team. They were out there as well. Our drone operator that was out there last Friday at Georgia, Florida. and of course our honor guard. From here, I wanted to you understand what I'm trying to bring to Glenn County Police Department. I think it's important when I started as the public safety director, and then when you brought me on in June as the police chief, that these are things that are near and dear to me. And when you look at this, is really gaining the public trust and confidence, and it's through enhancing and achieving these individual things that I have listed. Most importantly is accountability. I believe in accountability and transparency, not only for myself, but for everyone at the department and who we supervise and represent, for the public to see that. So that's why I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak here and for the public that is watching. Professionalism. I think that's extremely important. The public expects and demands us to be professional when we deal with them, but also when we deal with each other and other agencies. That's extremely important. We can't do this job alone. We have to work together with our partners in public safety, from state, federal, local, and all across. It's very important. And of course, this is an issue that's, I found, an issue and a cultural issue in the department, which is equitable and objective internal processes and procedures. Officers need to know they're going to be treated the same regardless of who they know in the department, who their supervisor is, and who hired them. That's a bedrock of, quality, law enforcement, and professionalism. They need to know that. Policy revision and development. That's what we're doing as we move through state certification and CALIA accreditation. They make you do that. And it's a great opportunity for us to really hone down on that and to revise our policies to best practices throughout the country that are going on right now. And again, state certification and CALIA accreditation. We did have a state certification mock assessment a short time ago, and we're doing very well. We could be there at the end of this year, or possibly beginning of next year to be state certified, and then we would have to maintain that for a year for it to be fully effective. So we're very happy with that. And then, of course, we're going to continue with the CALIA accreditation.
Tell us, Chief, how many other departments in the state have their certification?
It's not as many you would think. I mean, that number needs to grow. There's actually a possibility that the state is looking into mandating them this on every law enforcement agency. So we will be ahead of the curve if we do this. I don't have the exact number for you, Chairman, but we're way ahead of the curve.
I think during one of our police advisory panel meetings, I think the number was about 50. It was under 60. It was in the 50s. All the departments across the offices across the state.
And obviously, if we weren't doing this when I got here, I would be asking you to do this because I am very familiar with accreditation and certification. So it is important for a department. You have to hold yourself to these higher standards and policies. You just can't do what you like to maintain your state certification and CALIA accreditation. So thank you for that. I wanted to give you an idea of what was going on nationally. Now, this isn't probably the best graph, but these are true stats. So if you look at the bottom right, it says N182. So that's 182 different agencies that PERF is the Police Executive Research Forum. It's almost like a think tank for police executives that actually work together to try and build best practices of what's going on nationally. So when you look at this, the retention nationally is a problem. If you look at it from January 20 to January 2023, it's continually going down. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but obviously they're looking at they should have 100,000 officers, and that's where they're going. It's not going up. It was low when it started in 2020, and it's going down continually. So it is a national trend. It's not just here in Georgia. It's definitely not just here in Southeast Georgia and Glenn County. Again, here's another idea of understanding what's going on nationally. Again, these are both national surveys. So I want you to see this, and this is retention of sworn officers. And again, it's continuing to grow. So the graphs are going up, meaning officers are leaving at a higher rate than they had in years past. And this started before COVID in 2019, so you can't just say it was COVID or maybe the social media and the George Floyd. This is continuing to evolve, and it's not coming down anytime soon without being proactive and addressing issues as they come up. Do you have any questions there? I just wanted you to understand, again, the bottom one, which says N177, that's 177 different police agencies, and that's throughout the country that they polled and made this survey from. And the same thing on the right was 178 agencies.
So if I could, just nationwide, so really what you need to do is add another zero. So typically there's between 800,000 and 1 million police officers in the United States. I think the graph before showed 100,000. So this probably, if you look at this, my guess is based on a national trend, this is, if you add another zero to all these numbers, that would probably be what we're seeing nationwide.
And what's driving this? There's many things that are driving this, and I'm gonna touch upon them in this presentation. So the National Incident-Based Reporting System, the crime statistics, we call it NIBRS. It used to be Uniform Crime Reporting, you probably heard from years ago. That's information that police departments report to the federal government, and then they compile it. We do it both in Georgia and we do it nationally. Unfortunately, we don't have full retention. It's only been in effect a few years. So in Georgia, there's probably 650 or so agencies that should be reporting their NIBR information. We're only in the 400s that are actually in compliance, and we are one of them, Glenn County Police Department. So if you look on the left, when you look at violent crime, you look at the sheer number of incidents in 2020, and then you look what it was in 21. That's dramatic for the United States. And then, of course, those are the victimizations. Those are the victims that are involved. So you could have multiple victims, obviously, in individual offenses. So that's why you see a disparity in the number. Then if you go over to property crime on the right, which is always much higher than violent crime, you'll see the incidents, again, still going up. They're not going down. And you're probably saying, why is it 2021? Why aren't we seeing 2022 and 2023? Well, NIBRS, because we report to the federal government compiles this, they're always a year and a half behind. So we don't have the 22 numbers as of yet. We'll probably get them at the beginning of next year. Now let's look at Georgia. So to understand what's going on in Georgia, again, look at the incidents on the left in 2020 and now in 2021, you see an increase for violent crime. And then you look at the victims, that's a large number of victims increasing every year. And then property crime to the right. It's a lot. It's going up drastically from 165 to 192 just for incidents. And that's in the thousands. Now Glenn County. So this is what Glenn County, the police department, reported to NIBRS. So I just want you to understand the context of it. And that's correct? That's a report net? Yes. I don't have access to other agencies, so we were looking at what was reported in Georgia. And if you look at violent crime, 762 up to a little over 1,100. And the same thing with the victims' crime to crawled up to 1,400, excuse me. Now, if you look at property crime, that number went up drastically from 20 to 2021, from 1,000 to 1,900. Now, a lot of that could have to do with COVID. We know when COVID was going on, but you also look at the number of victims. That's still usually property crime. The victims, you won't see the large jump that you do with violent crime, but you're seeing it still here. Now let's look at the staffing issues directly affecting Glenn County Police Department and why I'm here asking for your assistance. And I know you're large supporters of public safety, especially the police, fire, the 911 dispatchers, everyone that works together. But Glenn County Police Department is at a critical level right now. Like I said, they're authorized, we're slotted, we're budgeted for 133 sworn officers. They've lost 41 officers since 2020. When you look at that number, that's critical. That's a drastic number. Our current staffing levels, like I said, are critical. Patrol shifts are operating well below what we've allocated, and they are allocated for when we're at full strength, which, of course, produces safety issues for officers and response times for the public. And that's something that when someone calls 911, they want an officer there, and they want them there quickly, and we want to be able to provide that service as quickly as we can. Many of our officers are forced to work extended hours past their 12-hour shift, which is already a long day, and forced to work on their days off to meet staffing needs. There's usually not a shift that we have, and I don't know of one where we're working without officers being brought into a supplement to make sure we're at safe levels to patrol and respond for the public. That also affects investigations. So if you look at our investigators, they have very large case volumes, which affects how much time they can spend on each case in any given moment. And they're forced to work long hours, as you know, with the many investigations that a lot of you are privy to that has been going on, at least in the time that I've been here in June. Let's continue on. The increased workload, the work hours are leading to officers, as you could imagine, it's like any other profession, they're getting burned out. And they're really getting burned out because they need that time off to catch up, to recoup. This is a stressful job when everything's going great. But when you're working call to call to call, and you still have to get your reports in, and you got to remain within policy and procedure, it is stressful. It's very stressful for these officers. And it affects our ability to work special operations, to work special task force assignments. Right now, we only have one officer on a task force, and that's with the FBI. We should have more than that. In my experience, we should have an officer with the Marshal Service, with the ATF, with the DEA, at a minimum of every one of these task force. Why? Because it's a force multiplier for us, and it helps us collaborate and work with each other and know what's going on when we share intelligence. All these things are affecting, how we can target violent crime with these task force, including gang activity, which we know is an issue here in Glenn County, and then obviously the illegal sale of narcotics. But not only that, but the professional growth of our officers is actually being halted because of this understaffing, this critical staffing levels we're at. So promotional and professional growth within the agency are limited due to the critical staffing. And that's where we're at right now. We have many supervisory positions that I'm not filling. We're at the maintaining the critical level, because if I promote someone now to a supervisory position, that takes away an officer from patrolling the road or investigating crime. So that's the reason behind it. And now this is the most important one I think you need to understand. And I know I've discussed this with you. So if you recruit a new officer who's not trained in law enforcement, we send them to the academy after we do a comprehensive testing, background, all that goes into it, and then we send them to the academy. Then after the academy, we put them in FTO, pay them all this whole time, pay the salary of the people that are training them in the department, outfit them with equipment, the vehicle. If they leave at 2 years, we have $175,000 invested. So if we lose just 5 officers, which we have, that's $875,000 that we gave to another agency because we did the work. Now, I went away to the chiefs training because all new chiefs in Georgia have to go to a 2-week school. And when I was there was 30 of us from 30 different agencies. And when they asked the class, who's at full staffing, there was 2 that said that they were close to full staffing or full staffing. They were very small departments, and they did not hire people and train them themselves. They hired from other agencies because their workload was much lower, and they didn't have to respond to as many calls, so their quality of life was better for them. And the chiefs made no bones about it in the class. They go, that's why I do it, because it saves this much money. Because we talked about this. That's where that number came from. That's here in Georgia. In other parts of the country, it's much higher than that, based on their salary and the training costs. So this is a problem that not only affects us, but other agencies if they train someone and they leave at 2 years. We really need to keep an officer a minimum of 5 years. If you keep an officer for 5 years, you've recouped your training costs, and now they're a productive member. It takes an officer at least a year from the time we hire them, put them in the academy, before they're actually contributing on their own to the department. So that's a lot of time. Why are officers leaving? Well, there's many reasons, but in the short time that I've been here, I made sure I sit down with every officer that leaves. And it's not because I'm upset with them or mad that they're leaving. I'm glad they're still in law enforcement, because if they're leaving to go to another department, this is a very noble profession, and less people want to do this for a living. So I always wish them well and their families well. I want to make that clear. But these are the reasons they're telling me, based on these exit interviews that I've had. They're relocating to other agencies with higher rates of pay. That's the number one reason. And the other reason is they say they're burned out. And the shortage of staff that we have, and also the increased workload that I already discussed, is a problem for them and their families, because it affects their family life. And most importantly, the call volume. If you look at the Glenn County Police Department call volume, which hovers over 70,000 incidents a year, there's no agency in Southeast Florida that has that many calls that they respond to. That's self-generated and reported crimes that we respond to, the Glenn County Police Department. So they're relocating to other agencies that have that lower call volume, where they have less workload. And most importantly, some of these agencies, they're working because they don't have to work the same shifts that we make them work, whether it's nights, weekends, holidays. And that's why some people leave this profession and go to private sector as well. It's very demanding when you're away from your family and you have to work extra days and you can't spend time with them. And that's what's going on right now with the Glenn County Police Department. How do we address these issues? Well, there's no magic wand to retain people, but there are proven methods that do help, because right now there's less people in the country that want to do this for a living. It's a known fact, and that is no different here in Georgia and in Glenn County. So we need to dedicate our efforts on retention and hiring highly qualified officers. In the short time that I've been here, unfortunately, I've had to let officers go, meaning they were terminated. Why were they terminated? Because they're not holding themselves to the standards that we want them to, and probably because were they the most highly qualified? I would venture to say maybe not, when we were doing their backgrounds, and I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying from what I've seen. That's going to change moving forward. We need to eliminate the career track that the county police officers are on compared to the rest of the county employees with county government here. Meaning, law enforcement, public safety, 911 operators are different than all county employees. They're working night, weekends, holidays. It's a stressful job. And, I welcome anybody that wants to apply and do it. I want everyone to come work for us, and not just us, anyone in Glenn County. The whole idea is to attract more qualified people to come to Glenn County. That's my ultimate goal. So by eliminating that and implement a performance-based annual tier step pay system, as I had spoke to you about, I've created a step plan based on not only experience, but best practices throughout the country on how to reward officers, meaning a pay that they can see their pay at. We're hiring officers now, and they don't even know what their pay will be 5-6 years from now. And that's difficult. When you get in this line of work and you're young and you're going to settle down and have a family and you want to plan, raising children and purchasing a home, it's very helpful to know what your pay will be at a minimum a few years from now. And now that they have very difficult time seeing that. So we'll get into the specifics when we show the tiers, but I think it's important for you to understand that. The pay parity and compression issues are such a burden on the Glenn County Police Department right now. And the structured tiered pay system would alleviate that, and it would prevent it from ever happening again. And that's another reason why I think this is a critical issue that we need to address. And what is pay parity? What is compression for the people that are listening, or maybe someone who has a question here? We have supervisors at every level, from sergeant to lieutenant to captain and assistant chief, that make less money than the people they supervise. First of all, our captains and assistant chief cannot work overtime. They're exempt from it. So they work many extra hours and they're not being compensated. I have a lieutenant that's making more money than the last assistant chief and other captain who had just left as well. But that's affecting us moving their best and brightest forward, because they don't feel like there's an incentive for them to want to be a supervisor, to get promoted, because with that position of promotion, there's extra responsibility. There's extra responsibility, carries liability that's placed on them, and they're not being compensated for it. And I'm sure in every one of your line of work where you work, supervisors or owners of a company or a manager make more money than the people that they're supervising. And that's not happening here. How has that happened? Because in years past, when somebody got hired and maybe there was an increase in the starting pay, that might have affected the starting pay, but it started to compress until there was a pay parity where some officers are making more money. And when I say some, it's quite a few in the Glenn County Police Department, because they worked for the county longer than some people who stepped up to become promoted. So I think that's important. We need to reward and incentivize our officers. It's one of the biggest areas that's come across the United States, is that officers want to feel like they matter, that we care about them, and that we want them to better themselves through education, through training. Not that you have to be highly educated to be a police officer. I certainly wasn't when I started, but I moved and I committed myself to it, and I am now, and it has helped me tremendously. You can't say by not rewarding someone that they're not going to do it. No, there's always going to be people that will want to become more educated and more trained, but how do we incentivize it? Well, in this plan, you'll see that. And then another issue we're having is it's expensive to live in Glenn County. It's not as affordable as some other counties surrounding us. So we allow our officers currently to live up to 65 miles away, and then they have a take-home vehicle. So they can drive their take-home vehicle to and from work. Mostly you'll probably see them going up and down 95, or maybe going out west to live in other counties, because it's more affordable. So I'm asking, and I've put in this proposal, incentives, residency incentives, to have officers live in Glenn County. Not only the ones we're hiring, but the ones we have right now. And that's important, because these officers will still be driving their cars to and from work with take-home vehicles, and the public will see these cars more on the roadway in Glenn County, and not going up 95 to the next county, or down south to the other one, or out west, which happens now because they're doing that because it's more affordable to live there. So I think that's one that can be very beneficial moving forward, and perhaps it'll move on to other agencies and departments. Will probably pick up on this, because it is something that's being used not only in Georgia, but in other areas, and it's been very effective. Pay scale for pay for shift differential. So the national accepted time frame for this is between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. It's when the majority of people, including yourselves, are probably home with your families between those hours. Police officers, the ones at Glenn County, 6 months out of the year, they're working nights. 6 months out of the year, they're working days. Now, it's not a set 6 months. They do it for 3 months. It rotates. They go back. But in essence, it equates to 6 months of their life they're working, most likely when it's dark out, but away from their family when their family's at home. And it's stressful. It's difficult. It's much harder on your body. I did it for, well, over 32 years now. I've rotated. It's harder on your body. Eating, going to the bathroom. Anyone here who's done it knows exactly what I'm talking about. So the shift differential pay for officers, I know even the private sector, when we talked in one of our discussions, even Buc-ee's does it. Why? Because they know you need to really take care of your employees who are working those hours. It's difficult on them, and it's difficult on their families. But some other ones that are important are to create incentives for specialized assignments and skills. And we have quite a few of them that I mentioned earlier. Just a few. Our SWAT team would be a part-time one. Our interpreter that we have for someone who's bilingual, we have incentives for that. But also other ones for crime scene and for our investigators that are doing very difficult work. You know, they see some tragic things and they have to deal with that. And it's something they signed on for. Totally understand it, but it's not something everyone can do. And we want to make sure that they know that we care about them, and putting these incentives in there is helpful. And of course, longevity and loyalty with incremental longevity and payment incentives. So you'll see, and I know we've talked about them, it's not a lot, but it just shows them that their employer and us as their supervisors, the county government, and the public do care about them, and they understand what they're going through to make it through their career. Again, addressing the recruitment issues. We need to have a dedicated focus on recruitment of highly, like I said, qualified officers through robust and aggressive recruitment campaigns and advertisements, and that's everywhere in the community. You know, our best people to advocate for police work should be us, police officers. But when I mentioned to some of you, when I go to briefings and I meet with the officers and I ask them, how many of you in the room in the past year or two have recommended someone to apply to the Glenn County Police Department, and you only see a third or maybe a half, depending on the group, put their hands up? That's not acceptable. It should be every one of them. It would be just like if I asked all of you, who wants to work at Glenn County and who enjoys living here? I guarantee every one of you would raise your hands, and that's what we need by our officers. So changing that culture to where they're part of something bigger than themselves and they're held to the highest standards is something that we're going to use when we go through recruitment campaigns and advertisements. So I hope you understand that's my passion, and it is with my commanders, that they wouldn't be here as well. And providing hiring incentives for qualified, certified officers and those that were just completely coming new into law enforcement, maybe just 21 years old, was in another career but wants to come into law enforcement. How do we attract them? Well, hiring incentives are extremely important because they are effective. That's what I just found out when I was at the IECP conference, is that how effective these hiring incentives are. Now, they're more effective if you can spread them out a longer period of time. Again, that golden number we're looking for is 5 years at a minimum. And you'll see by my hiring incentive proposal, that's what it is. They have to complete 5 years to get that last incentive. And why? Because we need to retain them at least 5 years, 7 years. And by the time they hit 5 years, now they're vested in the department. They know where their career they want to go with, whether it's patrol, investigations, special assignments, and that's what we want. We want them to feel like they matter. Their career is important to them. They have a say in their career, and then we can help further their career. And an important thing that I'm not seeing when I first got here is we're not seeing an extensive background investigation on our pool of applicants. They weren't even checking their social media background. And to me, that's one of the most important things in law enforcement. You'll see is a glimpse of what they're thinking or what they like based on looking on their social media background. So we've started that, and we're going to continue to build upon that. But I just wanted to share with you the plans that we have moving forward. All right, here's how the tier system starts. So right now, if you look at the bottom right, we're at 52. That's what I'm proposing the starting salary should be. Right now, it's $47,400 and change is the current starting salary. Now, this system, if you look on the left, is based on 10 tiers for patrol officers. Now, I want you to be specific. This is police officers. This is not sergeants. So this would be investigators and officers. The starting salary would be 52. I'm proposing. Now, 52, it is a good amount of money. Is it the highest in Georgia? No. It's about the middle of the road, to be honest with you. And that's why we picked that number. Where we're at is more towards the bottom of Georgia. And actually, last year in the state legislature, there was a bill proposed to start the starting salary for all law enforcement, I think it was $55,000 to $56,000. It didn't go anywhere. It sort of died on the vine, but I was told at the chief of the school that I went to that it's going to be reintroduced. So we're probably looking at 52 will be left behind probably within a year or two. If that gets traction, I can't predict what will happen. So I just wanted to let you know where that number came from, or below that. So tier 1, there's a separation of 3% for each year of service to when they get to 9+ years, and then it caps. Why does it cap? Because we want people to move up the ranks. We want them to want that more responsibility to promote themselves, to look out for the department, and to bring their experience to others below them that they can mentor and train. This incentivizes that. And the other thing that's important, like I mentioned, is new officers can see what their pay will be at 5 years, 7 years, 9 years. That's important when they're planning their future. Well, another important thing is we can hire officers with this much experience, maybe 5, 7 years experience, with full-time police experience. And that's the important thing, full-time credible service that we verify through a detailed and extensive background investigation, and we can hire them and drop them in at that level. That will attract a lot of officers from not only Southeast Georgia, but we really want to bring more people in here. There's only a set number of officers that work in Glenn County right now, and people, and I'm sure Mr. Fallon will tell you from teaching at the college, that are interested in law enforcement now. That number is reduced dramatically than what it was and when myself, for the sheriff, and other people began their law enforcement career. It's just a fact, so we're all looking for that same pool of candidates. We can use this to advertise not only north of here, south of here, west of here, but throughout the country, and really bring people to come to work to Glenn County, because it is a beautiful place. That's why I'm here, and I love the department, and I love the people I work with. But it is an expensive place to live. This will help that, and so will the rest of this plan and incentive. So we'll go through the rest of the pay. Does anyone have any questions on this before we move on to the next one? So this is for officers. Now, how do you get rid of the what we call the compression and the parity that we have now? Well, we have to make sure that when a supervisor is promoted to sergeant, that they make more money than the highest person that they supervise who's an officer. It only makes sense. So this is how the step works. We put a 5% difference between the highest paid officer and then the lowest tier of a sergeant. Now the tiers are much less. Again, it caps off at tier 3. But the starting pay for a sergeant, you'll see, would be $73,000 and change, which is 5% more than the highest paid officer. That's how this step works. So let's go back here. Let's just say in 2 or 4 years, the board says, you know what, we got to keep up with the state. Let's increase the starting salary to $54,000 or $55,000. All you would have to do moving forward is increase the starting salary, and we would never have this compression issue again, because it would affect everyone going up. That's the whole idea, is to stop this issue from ever happening again, and to reward our officers and have officers apply and know what their pay is going to be. So we'll go back to the supervisors. This is the sergeants. And again, our sergeants, they supervise their individuals that work for them. They're busy. They have a lot of requirements on their shoulders, including reviewing body cameras, approving reports, and keeping up the standards with our policies and procedures, and ensuring that their officers are. Unfortunately, right now, we have a couple officers that are being investigated because supervisors identified them not following procedures 100%. And we'll see where they play out. I haven't received the investigations yet, but that's what I mean by being transparent and open, and being professional and building the trust, and that's how we do it. Here's lieutenants. Again, lieutenants will be separated by 5% from the highest paid sergeant to the lowest paid lieutenant. This will be their base salary. Lieutenants are the last rank in the state, in Glenn County Police Department, whatever their work, whether it's investigations or patrol, that they can work extra hours and get compensated for it. Our watch commanders are lieutenants. And again, it's a 3% increase between each tier. And why do we keep cap off each tier? Because we really want them to professionalize themselves, to put in, to go to the next rank, to better themselves through training, through education. And how do we do that unless we can incentivize it and make them want to do it? Not everyone wants to be a supervisor, and I understand that. Now, these are important because it shows a 10% increase from the highest paid lieutenant to the lowest paid captain. Why is that? Captains can't work overtime. So they're working many extra hours of incidents, and they just like the other night when we were out at the barricaded subject. I was out there, captain, there was many from the sheriff's department, the city. Our captain, he doesn't receive overtime. He was out there till 1:30 in the morning. You know, that's part of his job, and that's why we need to make sure that they're compensated more than those they supervise. And again, each tier is separated by a 3% increase over the year before. Now, how do you qualify for this? We just don't give it to everyone. You can't be involved in any major discipline. Again, that's how we hold that professionalism, that transparency, build that trust. You're not going to get promoted. You would be disqualified from receiving your raise to the next year if you're involved in major discipline. If you don't maintain all your certifications, your training, not only in-house with the department, but also state ones. And of course, they need a productive evaluation. If they don't have that, if one of those three isn't met, they won't move up to the next tier. They could stay at that tier for years. It's unfortunate, but if that's the case, maybe we'll be looking at other things for remedial. And the last one listed is the assistant chief position. Again, the assistant chief is not eligible to work overtime. So to move that starting salary above what the captain makes, 10%, it makes perfect sense, and it's what's done nationally. Not just here in Georgia. There's many agencies in Georgia that do the same thing. This is the only department I looked at. We looked at many of them throughout the state. And this is an effective way to show individuals what their pay will be if they do their job and they do it well, moving up the ranks with more responsibility. And that tops off there. Let's get into employee incentives now. So these incentives are for not only to attract people to come to apply to Glenn County Police Department, but to reward the ones that are here right now. And again, we want to professionally develop them through incentives. So education, this is an annual bonus that I would ask to pay between November and Christmas every year, based on your highest level of education from an accredited college or university. An associate $1,000, a bachelor $2,000, and a master $3,000. You can't get multiple ones. It would be just what your highest level of education is at any given moment. And I think it's important to do that. We will attract more people with maybe a small college education or even a larger education moving up in the department. This longevity pay. It's important to understand that new officers that apply now they're not involved. There's no defined pension system through the county anymore. They invest in their own 401 and other avenues with their own money. So this is a one-time payment for each milestone of their career. I'm asking in this proposal for $1,000 for 5-year increments. It goes up, except for the last one at 20. So 5 years is $1,000. 10 years would be $2,000. 15 years, $3,000. And then when they hit 20 years, $5,000. You know, to entice them to stay here, to be part of this development moving forward, to be proud of working here, but to also reward them. I mean, they're not going to get wealthy off of this. No one got into law enforcement to become rich. But we got to make sure that we support our personnel. And this goes a long way to telling them that we do. Now, when we talked about before, part-time specialized assignment pay, I think it's important for us to understand is that in the Glenn County Police Department, many of our officers will take our SWAT members, for instance. I believe that we have 12 total that we have. They have another full-time position that they do, whether it's patrol, whether it's investigations, and this would just be an annual extra bit to their salary of $1,000 if they were part of the SRT as SWAT team. The CBSA, who we only have one in the department right now, that's the computer voice stress analysis for lie detectors that mostly we use for our background investigation. And then our instructors. It's very important to have a large cadre of instructors to constantly maintain our force to the best practices. So we want to make sure that they're compensated for that. And now these full-time assignments, there's not many of them that I proposed, but I did propose $2,500 annually for our investigations and investigators that work there, and then of course our crime scene technicians. They are working all hours of the night and they're seeing the most horrific things that they work on day in and day out. And they need to be very good at their job, because if we don't handle evidence properly, we won't be able to prosecute a case properly, and that's important. How do we bring other employees here that want to attract them? Like I said, a county residency. It's a $300 monthly payment for a new employee, but also a current employee with the police department who's a sworn member to live within the county. Like I said, we have some officers driving up to 65 miles away in a patrol car that might not get the best gas because it has a large motor in it, and we're paying for that gas to and from work. This will really help the department, and it also will have more vehicles, patrol vehicles on the road in the county at any given time. Night shift differential, again, we mentioned that before. That's from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And it would be an added $2.50 an hour for the hours that you work at night. And bilingual. Right now we have one member of the department who's bilingual, who is she's constantly being called, whether it's, she was out the other night for our negotiations to interpreting for investigations. We need to attract and reward people to come here to work because we need a lot more than them. And this is a great way to bring in not only people who speak multiple languages, minorities, any other people, and it's a great tool for us to recruit. Here's our hiring incentives. For a non-certified officer, we want to propose $10,000 over 5 years. And yes, there are agencies in Georgia that are doing this right now. And then throughout the country, they're doing it in anywhere up to $30,000 to attract people. This is over a 5-year span. Not only non-certified officers, someone completely new to this profession, but also certified officers. And employee referral. So the employer referral would be any one of our sworn members refers someone to be an officer with us. We hire them. They go through the process, the background. They successfully complete field training, and they do their whole year probation without any issues. They'll receive a $1,000 referral. Again, I want to see everyone's hand go up when I talk to them that they're referring somebody to the police department. And who better to refer someone they feel comfortable with, who will be out there to work alongside them or provide backup or come there when they're on the ground with somebody and they need assistance. This is a great incentive program for that. How does the hire incentive work? So for non-certified officers, my proposal would be is when we hire a new employee with no training whatsoever in law enforcement and they pass the background, they're on board. When they enter the academy, we'll provide a $1,000 incentive payment to them upon completion of the academy. And then when they complete their field training, which is another few months after that, we'll do another one. And then at the end of that first year probation, another $1,000. So that's $3,000 potentially within their first year, depending on when they're hired and when the academy graduates, because we do bring people on before we get them to the academy sometimes. So that could be extended longer. And then upon completion, again, these are completed years. At 3 years, we will give them another $2,000 to incentivize them to stay. Again, what are we looking for? That magic at least 5 years. And then that's where the last one comes in. Upon completion of 5 years, they'll get an incentive check of another $5,000 to match what they've already received over 3 years. It's a very effective tool. It's one that I think if I was a new officer and I was contemplating on leaving at year 3 to go somewhere else, I'd be like, I only have to stay 2 more years. And by then, they're more invested. They're part of the department. And I believe you'll see a lot more officers stay here longer. But you're also going to see a lot of officers apply and people that are certified and non-certified. And I'll go into the certified officers is next. So the certified is the same thing, but it's $1,000 upon being hired. Then when they complete field training, because all officers, regardless of where you come from, we have to put them into field training. It could be a compressed field training because of their skill level, but they still need to learn our policies and procedures and how it is here in Georgia. And then they would get another $1,000 upon field training. And then at the end of their probationary year, they get that other $1,000. That's what we're proposing. Again, after they've been with us for 3 years, they have to complete their 3rd year, a $2,000 bonus. And then finally, after 5 years of employment with us, we would give that last $5,000 to equal $10,000 that they were provided over 5 years. That's what I have for now. I know we've spoke about this at length to some of us and the issue we're having, but I want to make it perfectly clear that this is not just about the Glenn County Police Department. There's only so many law enforcement officers in Glenn County that are out on the road patrolling every day. Let's just say hypothetically it's 200 because I don't know the exact number. Maybe it's 175. It does not help Glenn County if they move from one agency to another within the county or surrounding area. We're not making Glenn County any safer. We still have the same amount of resources here. We need to attract and bring in more people to Glenn County to make a career here. And that's what my presentation, that's what this proposal is aimed at doing. And it's also aimed at retaining them for the length of their career here. We don't want to hire them, invest all this money, and then they go somewhere else. And that is happening now. I'm not looking to hire from any department around here that's immediately around us. I don't want to strain their resources. I want to bring in new talent here, new officers, and people that want to make a career in law enforcement. And I think it's important. We're hiring an officer next month, and she's an officer, I believe, in North Carolina, and she has about 11 years of service. She's taken a $12,000 pay cut to take this job because her spouse wants to move here, and they're going to have a job here. It's hard to attract someone to come here if we can't give them the salary that they're already making when they're this is a highly qualified individual who's on the SWAT team who does a really good job, and we're looking forward to it because she's supposed to start next month. But that's just an example of what we could attract if we could keep her pay would be the same if it fell under this pay scale, let alone more. And I think that's what our ultimate goal is, to bring more officers here, to retain them, and to make sure that we work together. Because if Glenn County Police Department does this, it helps not only fire department, public safety, the sheriff's department, the city, the college. We want to bring in, and we need to move our salaries and our commitment to our personnel. And what better way to say that you support them and you're committed to them by implementing a plan such as this. You'll never have someone come before you again with a compression issue if you put a plan in like this. You'll never have someone come in and say a supervisor's making less money than someone they supervise. And that's what this plan is in place for. So I hope you understand my ultimate goal is, yes, Glenn County Police Department is at a critical staffing needs, but the fire department has needs too as well. And I've been working with Chief Finney to address them. Director Richardson, Kara and I, we've been in early stages of discussion. She sends me articles of other places throughout the country and how they're hiring and what they're paying their operators. I haven't talked to the sheriff in detail about what pay is, but I guarantee you he would like to see pay higher in Glenn County as well, as I know I do, because I want to attract more people to work here. And that's our ultimate goal. And I just want to say one thing, because I know I'm new, and I think it's important before you ask me any questions, is that before I put this play plan together, I didn't just come up with a number. I reached out to Tamara, the CFO for the county, to make sure what funds were available. What did we have? Because the last thing I want to do is come before you and the public to make you have to ask for more money from the public. This doesn't do that. We're 41 officers down, but we're allocated and we're budgeted for 133. If an officer is making $47,000 a year to get hired, and then it's another $20,000 a year in fringe benefits, that's $67,000 a year for every officer we don't have right now that we're budgeting, and this money has been accumulating. We won't have to raise rates to implement this one bit. This money has already been collected and allocated from the police fund. And the same thing is for the fire fund that I've been working with Chief Finney on. And I think it's important for you to understand it, and for anyone that's listening, is that I'm not asking you to allocate this money to put this in effect for you to ask anybody for more funding. And I know we've had discussions with Tamara on that, and I'm sure she can answer any questions you have about the numbers, but I stayed, and I wanted to make sure that I was fiscally responsible. I wasn't asking for anything that you were going to have to ask anyone for extra money to increase the millage rates, to increase their taxes. That's not what this is about. So I'll certainly welcome any questions you have, but I want to say thank you for taking the time. This is a critical issue, not only for the Glenn County Police Department, but for all law enforcement, for all of public safety, for fire, EMS, for our 911 operators. This is an issue that is not going to get better unless we stay in front of it and keep being proactive. This is a proactive way to move forward. Will we have to adjust this years to come? Most likely. But we could still use the basis of this plan to prevent any pay parity and any compression moving forward, and it's a great way to recruit people. We need to recruit more people into this profession. Right now, the national average is only 13% of law enforcement are female. That is way too low when they're half of the population. We need to attract more to do that.
We put back up the crime statistics for Glenn County, that particular page.
And again, I apologize, but because of the statistics, the way NIBRS works, it's going to be about 1.5 years delayed, and that's what we're required to report to the federal government. Oop. Is that it? Glenn County, is that the one you wanted?
Yeah, should just leave that up.
Sure.
Should have been some conflict.
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, Chief, thank you for putting this together. Thank you, Tamara, for assisting in that. I think we all realize that we are at a critical need. It's important also to say that we don't believe the citizens of Glenn County are under any threat of not being protected during this time. But your staff is having to work such overtime to provide that protection. I don't think anyone can argue the fact that we need to compensate our police officers adequately. And in looking at the police department, this is the first of them that we're looking at, but we recognize that we have issues with fire, with the sheriff's department, with 911, all of them that are our first responders. That we're looking at this to be able to recruit and retain. That's what our goals are, and by changing the matrix by which we recruit, so that we can publicize what we offer, I think is going to be a huge incentive in being able to reach out to people to get them to look at Glenn County. We are the most beautiful place in the world to live, and people want to come here, but they've got to be able to know what it is that they're going to be able to earn by coming here. Creating the professionalism and accountability standards that you are instituting is going to be an important tool in changing the culture in our police department. Everyone in Glenn County wants to feel protected, and we're working hard to achieve that, and to be able to respond in a timely manner to any call that we have. So that's just my take on it, and where I feel like we need to go, and I'll open the floor to any other commissioner that wants to add comment.
Chief, is there like a peer group that maybe perhaps you and Tamara may monitor as far as patrons that you can keep track of going forward? And I know there's a lag time in the information, but I was just wondering if there's a smaller group where you're not looking at statewide average or national averages, but some selected group maybe.
You mean for pay?
Yes.
Well, like I said, I was at the Chiefs conference for 2 weeks of mandatory training when it was in the end of the summer, and that was much discussion through time. So many of these numbers I got from there, as well as research throughout the state, meaning looking at departments comparable to the size of Glenn County Police Department. It's not fair to compare us to a department that's not full service, that maybe is smaller, or maybe they just do one thing. Maybe they're just doing patrol, or they don't do investigations. Those were the ones that were more fully staffed, to be honest with you, because there's not as much call volume. They might refer on a county agency like it's the sheriff's department, even though they're a police department, because they don't do investigations, which I saw in there. That's not the case. We do rely on us to assist one another, but Glenn County Police Department is a full service police department, so that's where those numbers came from. So I did do that.
Well, Chief Ebner, we, as commissioners, we support the men and women in law enforcement. We believe that they should be well compensated for the courageous work they do, not just Glenn County Police Department, but Glenn County Sheriff's Office as well, because they're out there on the front lines too.
Absolutely.
They do dangerous work. But my question is, have you seen this plan at work? Is this something that you have been involved with in the past, other departments that you may have worked with? Is this something that you have seen actually in place?
I have seen it work, and it does work. So I remember one of you asked me, like, what happens when this doesn't work? I think it was actually you that said that. So so thank you for bringing that up again, Commissioner. But like I said, there's no magic wand to make something work. But I can tell you one thing: if we don't do something, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse, because there's such less people that want to do this for a living. I'm hoping it changes in a few years. You know how things come around, it probably will. At least you're going to see with me, I'm optimistic. But yes, I have seen it work. And why do they do it? I mean, Athens Clark also offers a $10,000 bonus to hire people. Why are they doing that? Because they know it attracts officers to come work there. So we're not the only department that would do that. And I would make an obvious pitch that other agencies here and other departments here would want to follow suit, because it is an investment. It's an investment on your future, and that's the best thing that we have going in law enforcement. Is not our equipment, it's not the building, it's our personnel who we work with every day, who we put our lives on the line with. It's putting and investing in them. This shows that investment, and it's very important to attract the right people by doing that. So yes, Commissioner, it does work.
Okay. My second question is, You said, and you listed it up there, 41 police officers have left since June of 2022.
Yes.
Was pay the, there were several factors out there, but was pay the main factor for them leaving?
Well, I've only spoke to the ones since I've been here, and that's just over 10, about 12, to be honest with you, because I did terminate a couple, and we didn't have exit interviews with termination, to be frank with you. But yes, pay was the top one, and then, believe it or not, was call volume. And the amount of time that they're actually on calls. If you look at our officers, they jump from call to call to call. And it's easy to go handle a call and do an assistance when you're backing someone up, but it's not easy when you have to do the paperwork and make sure that we're doing all the other things that go in line. And now we have to make sure we're submitting it to the court, we're preparing ourselves for court, and we're following the rules, and we're actually reporting it to the federal government. All these things play into what officers are doing day in and day out. So their call volume, they're going to agencies that have less call volume. We've lost 2 officers recently that went down to an agency south here. I swore I wouldn't say any agency name, so I'm not gonna, because it's not about that. It's about the officers left. I wish them well. And they both said to me that they took the job where they went because their call volume was a lot less. They could spend more time with their family. They're not forced to work on their days off.
I'm gonna ask one more question, and I'm
Sure.
gonna pass it on. Maybe, Tamara, you might be able to answer this a little bit more. But is this more of a reconstruction, your pay scale and your pay plan, than a raise primarily? Are you
Yeah.
restructuring? Is that a tier? You kept referring to tiers.
It is tier steps. So there are, I'm going to be completely frank, because I know some officers are going to be upset with me with the department, but the only way to fix this parity issue and compression issue is to make sure there's a difference in rank above who you supervise. We are going to have officers now that are not going to get a dollar raise. So if you ask me what percentage an officer is going to get, it depends on their timing grade with the department and where they fall in the scale. But we will have officers that will not get a raise.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
Is that basically a reconstruction
Yeah,
of the
it's
pay
a,
scale?
it's a completely different pay plan, and it's a different, theory behind the way that we've, had our pay plans in the past. We've tried for many years to mimic, public safety pay plans to our normal county employee, recreation, finance pay plans, and they're different jobs. We're not working nights in finance. We're not, on the side of the road with the ability to get shot. So, it is a different job with different requirements, and it doesn't negate the other county positions. But I think that if you look at, I've worked with many, many counties and cities in the past with my audit experience, and the vast majority of them, in fact, I can't recall anyone besides one county that does not have a different pay structure for public safety than they do for their regular employees. So I think what Scott is proposing is definitely standard across the board to have a public safety pay structure and a regular pay structure.
And that's similar to the federal government as well. The federal government has a similar step increase in your grade, which would be similar to the different levels of the police officers, plus the retirement system for law enforcement and for first responders. That's how public safety is a totally separate retirement system.
This is a question. Well, first you, second you. Do you ever see yourself fully staffed at 133?
Yes and no. In my short time there, would I obviously like to see 133 officers? Absolutely. We could do so much more, and I had a lengthy conversation with the county manager on this. Specialized assignments, but bolstering up our shift patrol. Right now, we're out there with a watch commander and a sergeant. We should have at least 2 sergeants working and the watch commander, but I would propose a 3rd sergeant. Why? There's so much burden nowadays that we have to comply with reviewing video camera and reviewing footage, that every time one of those supervisors is in the station doing that, they're not supervising where they should be. So I would like to increase that with the numbers that we already have available, but also to civilianize some positions. And I did mention this in some of our conversations, whether it's, if he's listening, I apologize, the quartermaster position, or a position that we do to watch all of our, whether it's our CAD system, our flex system, reporting to NIBRs. That could be a civilian position if we hire the right person. Of course, they'd be supervisors, there would be sworn members in there, but we could change the actual layout of the department moving forward based on our needs as we fill them. That's how I envision it was moving forward, Commissioner.
So now you know my question is if we're fully staffed, how does that affect? the budget?
So, right now, and this is standard across the county, we budget for being fully staffed. Most of our departments do not have the vacancy rates that the police department has right now. So, because of that, because we budget for full staffing, the police fund, and that's important to mention that the police fund is a separately funded millage rate than the general fund, then, fire is separate, police has its own fund. So at the end of last year, the police fund had a $4.7 million. And our fund balance policy requires that we keep 100 days of operations in fund balance for emergencies. So 100 days of operations in the police department is approximately $4 million, right at $4 million. So the police fund was started in 2020, and it has taken us from 2020 till 2022 to, gather that $4 million 100 days of operations. So that's our base. We don't want to go below that. At the end of 2023, and our audit is not completed yet, but we have some fairly good numbers. We're at 6.3 million in the police fund, and that came from all of the vacancies that we haven't been able to fill. So looking at the total proposal, and I haven't looked at all of the numbers exactly to the penny, but overall, we believe that we can fund this for 3 years with our current money that's in place. So if this were to be approved today, it would take us 30 to 45 days to implement it into our system to be able to get the payroll processes set up for all of these. And we would be able to pay the remainder of FY24 out of our current FY24 budget without even touching our $6 million fund balance. So we would still have money left at the end of FY24 because we're obviously not going to be able to hire up to the 140 people by June 30th. So we would have some more roll into fund balance. So looking at those numbers over this trend, I do not believe that we would have to raise the millage rate in the police fund at all to cover this. I believe that this is a sustainable plan. We have talked, extensively about, that one of the commission priorities is to keep millage rates low. And that is something that we have worked very hard to build a sustainable plan that we can keep in place without having to raise the millage rate. So right now, we have enough money on hand to fund this for 3 years without any issues, and possibly up to 5 years, just depending on how fast they fill those vacancies. But I do believe that we could maintain this long term without raising the millage rate in the police.
I believe too that, we have this many positions allocated, but if we could get to 120 sworn officers, we would feel like, we would feel a huge sense of relief in the stress over time. And so, if we don't get to the 133 plus the 7 special, if we can get to 115 or 120, we're going to see a huge relief. And because we would still fund at the full staff, we'll be able to sustain this out for an extended period of time. My thought.
And you're exactly correct. I mean, I was asked Captain Stroll, how many investigators were we allocated for?
23 investigators.
And we have how many now?
8.
8. So you see, that's a big disparity on where we should be with investigations, especially if it's a serious investigation.
One more question. Could we reduce overtime pay percentage-wise significantly if we were to implement this plan?
Absolutely. So when
And
there's
that's money as well.
Yeah, when there's vacancies, there should be a direct correlation with the overtime going up with how many vacancies you have. And then it'll start to even out depending on how many we hire. That's just standard practice with budgeting and especially with law enforcement.
And you're paying out overtime all the time, man.
Yeah, I didn't bring those figures here. I didn't want to shock the board, but there is quite a bit of overtime going out because we have to staff our shifts properly, our investigations properly, and we're never going to jeopardize public safety, so we'll keep bringing in more officers.
And that works the same with you, Sheriff, is that correct? Thank you.
But again, like I said, our captains, our command staff, the standard practice, policymakers shouldn't work overtime. They're policymakers, they're executives. And I'm not looking to change it. I'm not looking to pay
They
overtime.
work overtime, they just don't get paid overtime.
Exactly. They work extra hours, as they'll all know sitting behind me, but yes, they're part of the executive team that makes executive decisions and develops policy.
To your question about the vacancies versus so on board versus have vacancies. With the Marshal Service, we have about 6,000 deputy U.S. Marshals. We call it burn rate. Most federal agencies call it burn rate. So that burn rate typically is around 92, 93% of vacancies that are actually full. And so they use that 6-7% toward overtime or toward programs or whatever else. And in fact, if we ever got to the point where we had full 6,000 workforce on board, we probably wouldn't be able to do a lot of things that we're doing. So relative to this, I don't see a case where, certainly not anytime soon, we're not going to get 140, but we're going to chip away. But I think we'll always probably have someone at 5 to 10% range of vacancy. I think that's just unfortunate.
We'll lose people through attrition, through retirements as normal, and some people want to work longer than others, but that'll happen, but we'll continue to fill. With this plan, it'll definitely be helpful to do that. And again, every time someone leaves at a retirement, they're making a much higher rate, and usually we can hire 2 people for the salary we're paying them, so you could see it does offset that.
Chief, one of the big things it seems like has been incentivizations or possible grants to help with the cost of housing. Because it's obviously preferable to be located in, the county. So this would include some things to help.
Well, yes, the first one, like I mentioned, I think that's important, is the $300 monthly incentive to live in Glenn County. It is advantageous for the residents and for the community to have officers live in their community. I
Right.
hate to say it, but whenever someone's selling a house, the first thing they do is point out where the police officer in the neighborhood lives. They do that for a reason. And I'm sure you would want more officers living in your neighborhood, and I want them here as well.
Yep. So I think that would be very helpful.
And that's pretty much an offset cost too, because the wear and tear on our vehicles, gas to go and come from outside the county.
Right.
It's $300, but it's not a true cost of $300. There's a huge offset factor. I don't know exactly what that would be, but there's an offset there.
I just want to say that I have a full-throated support for this, Chief.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I know everyone.
Again, as I said in other sessions, just like with teachers, it makes no sense for us to underpay teachers, because we would know anything, nothing without them. And for somebody to purposely get up and put their life on the line for others every day, I don't know how you compensate them for that, but you certainly don't undercompensate them for a quality of life that they earn every day. And that was my questions about how do we increase the quality of life for our officers. And I know we all know about all the issues we've had over the years. There's still a major trust issue with the Black community, but the new and young officers that I've met and had a chance to spend some time with some of the older ones, we have a very core nucleus of great officers that are really here to protect and serve. But I think we need to give them the tools. And we start out by showing them that we appreciate them. They put their lives on the line every day. And it makes no sense, as I said, we have to borrow the money, which we don't have to. And we know Tamara is spot on with her numbers, so that's not to be questioned. And and to come up with this incentive plan, I think was a great step to taking us to the next level. Uh, the cause of a lot of things, and the commission is trying to help deal with this in other ways, is really poverty. And that's the root cause of a lot of crime and people seeking a better life, trying to take shortcuts. That's another debate, another time. But for our officers, I think this helps with creating a diverse police department, because folk who are in the Black and brown community say, well, I can really make a good living. I can do something that is really meaningful for my neighborhood. And they can see what they will be making over the years and the other incentives as well. We're moving toward a better quality of life for them. This is not it. It's not the end of it. Because our officers, they deserve more than this. And I think they're going to step up and show that this first step is really something that's very positive for the community. My hope is that we're able to get them to interact more with the public, and be able to give them time where they can have spend more time with their kids, make conferences, make special lunches at school, maybe even give them a dinner pass to a restaurant for them and their spouse or significant other. But I really think this is a no-brainer for us. And I appreciate you, and I know that the county managers has been involved with this, for the other staff at looking at this, because it's that important. If we don't feel safe, all this other stuff we talked about today doesn't matter. So we have to feel safe. And I just want to thank you and the other officers that they stand the post when I'm asleep at night. So, I'm all for this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Commissioner.
I got a couple of questions. I'm sitting here and hearing all the numbers, and it's a great proposal. And first of all, honestly, I rode with the county police, rode with the sheriff's department, spent the night in the jail, not because I got arrested or anything, but saw the what goes on after the sun gets out. And the night I rode with your officers, and we had this conversation on Monday, we only had 11 officers working. We normally have 18. They were stretched thin. We were all over the county. We were in the city for a little bit trying to help them out. But I'm sitting here and I hear what Tamara says, it's going to be fully funded for 3 years. But the fire department, who goes into buildings with 550 degrees, fire department paramedics come to my house and help me get to the hospital when I was having a heart attack. They're going to want something, and they need something.
Absolutely.
I've been in a container with those guys. It's 500 degrees. Sheriff's Department, detention center. I wouldn't work back there for $30 now. Okay? You get spit at, cut at, bit, all the nasty things that all of us out here don't see. This is fully funded for 3 years. We know that. But I need a guarantee from this board that the sheriff will get his needs, Chief Vinny will get his needs, because I am public safety proponent. These officers sitting right here are some of the best we got. They do a fantastic job. I found out about this on Monday, and I'm real leery. I like sleeping on things. I like thinking about it. And my one question is this. The officers that you did exit interviews on, you said 10. I know you didn't do 40.
No, I did over 10. I had more than that leave, but some were, like I said, terminated and resigned under termination, so.
What was the tenure on all of them? Were they 20 years, 15, 5?
No,
10?
they were anywhere from a couple years, like I said, that magic number we were hitting at,
Yeah.
we'd a few in that range, all the way up to 12, 13 years. And some were more than that. You know, we have lost a lieutenant, a couple sergeants, actually a couple lieutenants, a couple sergeants, and then officers. So the number I'm coming up with is 12 in my head that I know of, but in a short period of time, if you look at 12 since June, that's a large number.
Tier 1 officer right now making $47,000 worked all last year, let's just say 2022 with overtime. What did he gross?
Well, we have officers now, the average officer who's worked around 6 years with the department is making $53,000 a
With
year.
overtime?
No, I did not pull their overtime because it's different with each officer depending on where they're assigned. But we do have officers that when we put details up are not even signing up for them because they're so tired. They don't want to work.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I'm just being completely honest, but what you said about public safety, their fair share, you're never going to see anybody who's a bigger proponent for public safety than I am. I've had extensive conversations with Chief Finney. My goal was to bring a full package forward with everyone to be completely transparent, but this was the critical needs. This is what we chose to work on first, and then we're going to continue with them. It is absolutely my plan as the public safety director and as someone who has been working in law enforcement so long. I care deeply about them, the sheriff's department, all the other departments around here, especially our 911 operators. It's so hard to attract people and retain them. And I'm telling you, Director Richardson could tell you the same thing. She has the same issues with retention. So does Chief Finney. The sheriff, maybe not so much, but I'm sure he would love to retain more people in the jail, in a detention center. And I would not want to do that job either. It's a very difficult job. All these jobs are very difficult that the public knows that we do, but they don't know the intimate details of really what goes on.
I appreciate it. Getting back to my point is, I'll support this, but I want to see the sheriff and Chief Finney, whatever they need to meet, to get whatever they need to staff their department. I don't want to hear, well, we don't have the money or any of that. We have met a need. This is a need. It's not a want. It's a need. They're going to need needs, sheriff back there, and I expect us 7 to step up when that time comes. I hope we would.
Commissioner Clark, I have to push back on your statement. Because who are you to ask me for a guarantee? I'm going to support this because it is the right thing to do. And I've supported the sheriff every year I've been here. I don't know him ever not getting what he's requested. And the fire department. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. But I really push extremely hard back on you saying you gonna need a guarantee. Like you the only one can speak for the sheriff or the fire department.
I'm speaking for the rank and file.
I don't listen. I'm just telling you. I can only speak for myself, but I would never tell you that I need a guarantee before I make a vote. We all vote individually. I mean, you're free to vote against this if you think we're not going to provide for our firefighters or the sheriff department. I just think that's out of order. But again, back to what we're here for today. I fully support this.
And if I could intervene just a second. In talking with this, I had the opportunity to talk first with the chief and our county manager and Tamara over this proposal. And none of the time did we say that we were going to make this exclusive to the police department. This is the critical need, and it's immediate. But I have talked with the sheriff and assured him that we are not going to leave any department out of our public safety conversation here, and that it's my pledge to try to get this done before the end of the year.
There was some communication that we might vote on that today. Is that still kind of
That is the desire.
because, well, as you know, I expressed back, I hope that we at least step back just a little bit. So I wanted to address that first. First of all, I had to put this back up here because it speaks for what's happening in Glenn County, and that's the lack of our law enforcement volume to be able to take on what's happening. And you put a good plan together and something's different. You know, I've come on the commission, we've been going through a lot with police chiefs. And so I'm happy that you're here with us, and I'm happy with what you're doing. But just a couple of things to talk about going forward that we've all discussed since we've been on the board here. One is in the pursuit of trying to find a police chief that we were satisfied with, that worked out. We had a lot of discussion with the sheriff about him coming in and helping out, partnering, temporary and so forth like that. And a lot of conversation, and I'm not trying to stray off the issue, but it is part of what we're looking at. Part of that discussion was in the next election, were we going to have a referendum about the disposition of the police department and the sheriff? Because as most people know, Glenn County is one of 12 in the state of Georgia that has dual agencies within its county, out of 159 counties. So, you know, I hadn't heard any more about that, but I want to bring it back up because we're making a commitment down the road for the future. And I guess that with this, we're basically saying that we're taking that referendum that is quiet now off the table for a vote in a couple of years here. So the other thing that we have is that we definitely have to have a change, and I think you've done a great job. We have all of these agencies, everybody that's short-staffed, but you got to start somewhere to build that foundation. And public safety is what people are looking for first. If they're gonna pay their tax dollars, what their return back is public safety, and you're the tip of the spear. You know, I don't like it when the sheriff hawks people out of our department, and I don't like it when now I'm finding out the city's even hawking people out of our department. That's not a good thing that's happening. So we need to definitely make changes where we're not losing people that should be of a community team and should be in our department. I'm concerned about the fact that we send a message as a commission that this is the start of a wave that's going to have to change, because you are going to have people in fire, you're going to have people in sheriff departments, you're going to have people in city police, and we don't need to be cannibalizing in between each other. And I think the program that you put up helps prevent that, makes it clear. There's a lot of people that go into this nowadays are not going into it and have to be incentivized. As every business, even private business, has to. But I'm concerned about that we do need to do something because we have 10 million illegal aliens that have come in this country. And they started over on the west side, but they're moving east. And I think you're going to continue to see the criminal statistics rise as we're shoehorned in between Jacksonville and Savannah. So if we don't make this investment, and yes, the clock runs out, 3 years, whatever, then it's going to have to be dealt with in the actual budget. But those people are coming to town. And I think a lot of this indication that you're seeing here is the beginning of that. And we know what's been happening with the drug activity between Savannah and Jacksonville and here, and the violence that's been occurring. I'm concerned about the increase of mental health. There's not a lot of discussion about mental health here, but a large amount of our lower runners and initiators of crime that are directed by and lured or our mental health community. And if we're not addressing that, those low-level offenders that wind up in your facility there and are repetitively in and out are a problem. So I hope that in our police plan that you've looked through, that we begin to engage more with mental health. Georgia now has a weapon, a tool, however you want to describe it, with the 1013 law. But we're not locally funding that effort to deal with a lot of these activities that occur that are a combination of mental health people. I don't know the records, but if we go back in there, I'm sure the arrest records are continuously local population, mental health related, drug related, that are being snared. So, you know, this decision to move forward needs to be much broader and will be broader, but we can't leave out the elements that are a part, because officers that hopefully we can hire on here have got to have the resources in mental health, arrest and patients like that, and illegal aliens. We've got to have a program for illegal. And I just, you know, these are things we know, but this is part of the decision that we would be making that encapsulates all of these issues. And that's why I wanted to bring back up the referendum, because as our commissioners got, when we had that kind of challenge and issue in front of us, it got pretty hot within this community. In fact, I remember a lot of us stood before a lot of the local business here about hiring the sheriff, bringing them on, all the things that we've travailed for, which has been going on since I came on the commission. I think we're, with the leadership that we've got hired with Mr. Fallon and the team that we've got hired in you, I have a lot of hope, and I think that your investment plan is going to be a good thing. I didn't want to really vote for it tonight because I wanted the community to get the word of what we were doing, to see it and hear it. It's not, you know, this is a work session, so everybody's not really cleared in. I don't have any problems if y'all would defer it over to tomorrow night, but I just think that we owe the community, this is a pretty big switch. And we're doing it because we have overages in the budget, but I just think the community needs to hear about it, to weigh in about it, be able to react to it, and, you know, so that's the only thing I'd ask, is that we don't vote on it tonight. I'd be prepared to do that, but I'd like our PR people and our press people to get the word out exactly what we're doing. This is a major switch.
But if I can address that, Commissioner, we have been putting the word out, and this was a special call commission meeting. It wasn't a work session meeting. But the paper, Brunswick News, has addressed this with an editorial commenting on the need that we have. We've had some PR releases on it already building up to this. This isn't exactly something that we're springing on the public, and I know you don't mean anything in a negative manner, but this is something that we've identified the need. We've told the public of the need. This is a plan to correct the need. And I cannot imagine anyone that loves this county would not want to move forward on getting this done. And I think the public is informed. I think they were informed before we made an announcement of the need to recruit and retain our officers by way of this. This is a step in the process, and you know, it's incumbent upon the chief to prove that this process is gonna work. But I've got all confidence that it will.
Well, I'm just saying that because, you know, I think I represent a special district. And I've been getting a lot of calls and questions, and I've asked them, hopefully they're watching in this afternoon. Just, that's all.
I agree with Commissioner Finley, maybe defer it. I mean, I know there's a sense of urgency. I found out about it Monday, and I think most of us all did. And so I think the public has a right to kind of just sort through it, see what, talk amongst themselves, call their commission, you know, and let's get a feel for how they feel about it. You know, so I have to defer it.
And I'm prepared to do it tomorrow night. I
Yeah.
just want to give people a little more, based on the calls I've got, information I was trying to provide. Now, this is a public discussion that we've had between us, presentation and actual, you know, it's live and where people can look at it tonight if they want to have any comments, they can wait.
Well,
I'm for it. Thank you. You did a lot of work. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't, I agree with the chairman. I think this is not something that the public is surprised about. And we're not asking, Commissioner Finley, you said because of over, budget items. That, I don't think that's accurate because we've been under budget because of the vacancy. While we have the funding available. And, I don't know why we would need to delay this. You know, there's some things we do need to defer, but this is not one of them. I think that we're going to be just as supportive of any other department, especially our first responders, as we are with the police department. I have not seen that in all the commissions I've served on here. Also, I don't think, I just want to distance myself from the comments about the so-called illegal aliens. These undocumented people provide a lot of economic development for the businesses, the few that we have here. While it has been growing over the past few years, my thing is for us to continue to encourage a diverse police department. And again, I think this is one of the things that would do that. And it takes time to change that culture. And I think this moving forward beyond these discussions about who would be the chief divided us and still divides us. But I think this moves us more toward a unified community than I mean, if we want to get back on that big debate, we can. And again, we know that because of Ahmaud's murder, we can't, this is not local stuff that happens with us. This becomes world news. Folk may feel very comfortable now that the main trials are over and the perpetrators are in jail. But people are still looking at us because there are other things that we have to do. I mean, who would have thought that that would have happened here? So we know that there's other things, other parts of our community, the culture that needs to change. I'm getting on the soapbox. Those are just my comments.
I think the most important job that we have as commissioners is to protect the citizens of this county. That's our number one job. And by doing that, I feel that we have to support our law enforcement, our sheriff's office, our fire department, our EMTs. That's what we do, and that's the most important job that we have, and I think that's what we were elected to do. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to move forward.
Can I say one thing? I want to remind the commission, there was a knee-jerk reaction personnel policy a couple of years ago that we, I think, voted on, and personnel, the folks at workforce had were kind of angry. You know, there was some, should have been some, maybe a delay. I agree with Mr. Finley. You know, just defer this thing and let's hear from the citizens. what does it hurt? I mean, like I said, that's my stance. If we're ready to vote for it tonight, I'll support it as it is, but it's just,
And my feeling, Commissioner, is, we can, I think all of us are committed to moving forward. What's the difference in today and tomorrow? And the infinitesimally small, did I get that out right? Small number of people that would be against this. I don't think, it is a measurable number. I won't say anything disparaging, against anyone that in our population that would be against it, but we know that this is the right thing to do, and the difference in voting tonight or tomorrow night, I would be glad to listen to citizens that want to call and talk about it, but it's, as Commissioner Tostes said, this is the most important thing that we do in this county, is to protect the citizens of this county. And I don't see anything in the world that would change my vote between tonight and tomorrow. So, I'm not gonna withdraw my support for law enforcement, over phone calls that I might receive.
I just telling you that I'm supportive of this. I'm glad about it. I've had calls and questions. It's a change of direction. I think my constituents just need an overview of the information that was presented, but
I don't mean to keep debating this. I know we're all ready to
so
go
that's
home.
fine.
But we can still answer the question, would it change our vote? And no, we're informing the public of our proposed solution. That's what we're doing. We can continue to inform of our proposed. We can explain this if they don't see this. We could explain it. Any time that you explain this, I don't see how anyone could stand against it. That's me, and I'm one. But I'm prepared to vote. I
Have a motion.
Motion.
What's the motion? I'm prepared to make a motion.
Is there any other discussion that we need to have before we hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion that we accept the plan, police plan as presented by Chief Edmond.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Tostes and a second by Commissioner Booker and Commissioner Fendig. Any other discussion before we take the vote? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Chief Ebner, thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you, all of you, very much. Thank you for your
I would
support.
like to make one comment, please, if I may. It will take us 30 to 45 days to implement this. Please don't call payroll tomorrow asking about this, okay? So we will work on it as quickly as possible, but it is going to take some time.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Anything else to come before us this evening? All right. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Properly motioned to second. We stand adjourned.